One of the first things that disappears when you write about sports for a living is fandom. It's a necessary sacrifice. The teams you grew up watching with your parents, your siblings, and your best friends become part of the job. But as a hockey writer, I still root. Sometimes it's rooting for a compelling story to emerge where there isn't one. Or rooting for a game to avoid overtime so I can make it home in time for parent-teacher conferences. The NHL is now loaded with remarkable athletes who arrive bigger and faster than the group the year before. It was amazing to watch the Maple Leafs star Austin Matthews score 4 goals in his first NHL game. It is breathtaking to see the Oilers center Connor McDavid blow past defenders through the neutral zone, only to spin around the last line of defense and blindly find a teammate for a tap-in goal. It is also completely impossible to relate to them as fellow human beings. That's why I feel closer to the coaches. They're a little more relatable. And they often arouse my curiosity more than any other part of the game and are therefore more fascinating to analyze. What goes into the player matchups or who is getting icy time? How do they get a bunch of athletes pulling in the same direction? And, to begin with, how did they even get the opportunity? In reporting for a book, I got to spend lots of hours over 2 years sitting down with hockey's most prominent coaches to watch game films, often in their living rooms or offices. It was the best opportunity I'd had in a decade covering hockey to ask these questions. When it was done, it was natural to try and find a common thread among the personalities. One existed. Somewhere along the line, most of these coaches faced a major life decision. On one side of the equation was an opportunity that was completely safe, often in a profession outside of sports. Mike Babcock, the coach of the Toronto Maple Leafs, could have been a business consultant. Joel Quenneville, coach of the Chicago Blackhawks, could have had a career in finance. Bob Hartley, who won a Stanley Cup with the Colorado Avalanche in 2001, had a job at a windshield plant he expected to keep the rest of his life. Because he had 2 young children, it was certainly the safe thing to do. The story of a factory worker is, once you buy a lunch pail, you die with that lunch pail, Hartley said, as we sat and watched his Avalanche win a Stanley Cup on a laptop screen in front of us. There's no shame in this. Nope, none at all. It's the path most of us take. Find a job with benefits, a salary that comes close to covering the monthly bills, and hope you can hang on to it long enough to put the kids through college. These guys instead took a major risk to pursue their passion. And there's a part of me that naturally roots for anyone willing to do this. Babcock turned down the consulting job. Hartley walked out of that windshield factory, telling his stunned co-workers he'd return one day with the Stanley Cup. They thought he was crazy until the day he actually did it. The coach of the NHL's best team so far this season, John Cooper of the Tampa Bay Lightning, left a successful career as a lawyer to pursue his coaching dream. These guys took on major risks, they chased their passions and, often along the way, they were fired. Some of them multiple times. It's how it goes as a coach. The path to the top isn't a linear one. Certainly not in a profession with as much volatility as coaching. Mike Sullivan, coach of the Pittsburgh Penguins, was fired multiple times, including from stints as an assistant coach, by teams like the Boston Bruins and Vancouver Canucks. Still, he grabbed his whistle and looked for ways to earn one more shot. I always said to myself, I'm not going to be able to control certain aspects of the business, Sullivan told me. I'm going to have to be willing to do what it takes to get where I want to go. Did it happen as fast as I wanted it to? no. There were some days I wasn't sure I was going to get a chance again. When he took the job as the head coach of Sidney Crosby and the Penguins, he suspected it was his last shot to make it as a head coach. He was probably right. All he's done since is become the first coach in NHL history to win back-to-back Stanley Cups in the salary cap era, which began in the mid-2000s. I admire that passion, the perseverance, and the constant pursuit of improvement. Am I rooting for these guys? Not every night, not when the games are being played. But on larger level, maybe I am. I see their risk-taking, their passion to be leaders, to form unforgettable teams for the ages, and I'm fascinated to see if they can pull it off. I see coaches like Dave Tippett out of work after being fired by the Coyotes, and there's a part of me that wants to see him get a shot at winning his first Stanley Cup. Dan Bylsma has certainly enjoyed his life fishing the lakes of western Michigan since losing his job in Buffalo, but the game is a better place when he's on the ice, instructing his team. Same with Bob Hartley, out of work in the NHL since getting fired by Calgary. So I guess I still root. I root for the dream to be kept alive. I root for one more good story for these guys to tell.